I've watched a lot of Detroit Lions football throughout my years. I'm 58 years old. And like many fans that have a few years like me on this earth, we have seen a lot of horrible football. We have seen a lot of clueless upper management. And that leads us to where we're at this year. We missed the playoffs. Now, Kansas City was in the Super Bowl last year, and Kansas City's won Super Bowls. So their fans are probably freaking out even more than we are. However, we are so hungry to at least even see the Super Bowl, which we were so close against San Francisco. We found every way to possibly lose that game. Then we had a 15-2 record and found a way to lose that game, and then we don't make the playoffs. So that's where we're at. And us fans are frustrated because we can use the hindsight. Every team goes through injuries, so I understand we had injuries, but you know what? So did San Francisco. They're in the playoffs. And you look who won a Super Bowl last year, Philadelphia. They made the playoffs. They're out right now, but and their fans are probably disappointed. But they took Jalen Carter, and he's a pretty strong force in the middle. And we haven't addressed our defensive front line woes. Now, our front line, it needs to be improved. But I think our quarterback, whose escapability is probably the worst in the NFL, makes that look worse than it is. So I'm not so sure how bad our offense is. Maybe one or two more guys could come in there and shore that up. And I'm on the fence. I know we need defensive help on the front line. I know we need some offensive line help. But my biggest concerns, and I think all Lions fans are too, Jared Goff has played well at times, very well at times. And we've gone further than we have in a long time. But I'm going to equate it to the Detroit Pistons, for example. Now, it's not quite the same because Isaiah Thomas was the leader and the point guard, kind of the quarterback of that team. And now you had other leaders like Lambeer. But we had Adrian Danley, who is a Hall of Famer, but the chemistry that we didn't we couldn't get past Boston with him. And that's where I believe we're at with Jared Goff. For all the folks that are saying he is not the problem, I understand that. Because on the surface and even quite deep, he's had more success than any quarterback that we've had in a long time. That's not saying that Matthew Stafford is not as good as Goff. I'm not saying that. I think the opposite. I think Matthew Stafford has proven he's a notch ahead of Goff. He is a Super Bowl winning quarterback, Matthew Stafford. The reason why we could beat him 2 years ago is that with the draft picks that came with him, with Gibbs, JMO, and Laporta, they gave us a better tight end than the Rams, and it gave us a better running back than the Rams, and it gave us a better second wide receiver than the Rams had at that moment. So with JMO. So and Goff played well in that game. Now Goff has also not played well. He laid an egg against Washington. And, we could blame Ben Johnson interviewing for jobs when instead we should be sitting with Jared Goff going over game films and planning. And that's the NFL's fault. That's not Ben Johnson's fault. That's a whole different ballgame. But I don't know. I'm leaving this up for your participation. Please leave a comment what you think. And I'm open minded on this. I would love to win a Super Bowl with Jared Goff. And I think had we, for the last 2 or 3 years, not ignored that we are weak on the defensive line, we need help on the offensive line, that Jared Goff would be good enough for our team to win a Super Bowl. But because we haven't gone after free agents, how did Green Bay get Micah Parsons and we didn't? I've heard the saying, "Oh, we're good there." No, we're not good there. And I think Brad Holmes already has commented. I posted it on my Facebook page that he already commented that he has to look at himself, and that's a good leader. I love Brad Holmes and what Dan Campbell's done. They have come in and they've made this Lions group the best Lions group that I've seen for a bit. But then there's that you have to look. And say, does Jared Goff show up every single game, and can we count on him in the biggest game to deliver? And it's so very few can deliver. I watched Abear just lay an egg yesterday. Herbert. I'm sorry, Herbert. Great season. Made playoffs. Good defense. A good defense dominated that game. I watched the Texans. I thought there were some illegal hits that I had against Rodgers, and through the years now I've been the biggest fan of Rodgers because he's been on Green Bay. But the last few games I've grown to admire his speed, his skill. He still can throw it. DJ Metcalf let him down. Not only was he suspended 2 games, there was a very important catch to make, and they had to punt because he didn't catch it. But he had and this is when the game was in the balance. They take the lead, they go up by whatever. It changes the whole football, so momentum driven. But you got a few players that can really step up and win it. Purdy's got that extra special thing. That Drake May looks good. It's going to be interesting to see how Denver does and how Sam McDonald does but we have a quarterback that is out of the playoffs. And I'm saying if we keep Goff, I don't want to see the same effort from the upper management of only adding some budget-wise free agents. I want a superstar free agent. a Max Crosby. We need that. We needed a Micah Parsons. We didn't get him. The first game that he played us, he was the difference. Imagine if we had him instead of Green Bay. We'd be in the playoffs, wouldn't we? Now, there's no way to predict when he was going to get hurt, but he put in a good season before he got hurt. So he made a difference in their flow of their season. And we need an offensive coordinator. We know that. But I'm all for finding a mobile quarterback. And you can keep Goff, but I want it to be an open competition. Now, if you can possibly trade him and get some draft picks and possibly get a steady quarterback such as a Kyler Murray, even a Tua. I'm not saying Tua or Kyler is as good as Goff. But with our offense, it's about the chemistry. Remember, Adrian Dantley was a very talented basketball player. But what the Pistons were trying to accomplish, he was good, but he wasn't good enough. By them trading for Mark Aguirre, Mark Aguirre had been a 28-point scorer. Mark Aguirre wanted to win a title, and was his good buddy Isaiah's leading the team. He allowed himself to come off the bench so Rodman, a defensive player, could come and play. So it was all about the chemistry. Why did Ben Johnson pick Chicago? Think about this. Think about it. Why did he choose Chicago and not stay in Detroit? Chicago was the last place team. And looking on the surface, look at probably the team that may allow him to have 3 to 5 years to rebuild that team. And in his first year, even after going down 0-2 for the season, they lost to Minnesota. Then we blew them out 52-21. It looked like we didn't need Ben ever. And boy, are we wrong. Ben was a big difference, folks. Here's what Ben did. Ben started the game off pounding Montgomery, and he would run, unless he got hurt or winded, he ran every run that drive. Then there would become Gibbs, and they'd rotate. And one guy may have a better game than the other, but they still had the same amount of opportunities. It was a team effort. Somewhere, and people may forget this, early on in the year, Gibbs sat most of this one game where Montgomery went off for 130, 40, 50 yards. Had a crazy game. But somehow Montgomery got very rarely used for a few games, and that's when we went backwards. We over abused St. Brown. So predictable. It's 3rd and 8. Where are they going? St. Brown. The man dropped some passes at the end of the season, and I believe it's because he was hurt, and he's probably playing hurt. Probably never wanted to report that because people would go after him. But you notice there's 2 or 3 people in his area besides the primary guy that was guarding him. So life was tougher for St. Brown. Meanwhile, you had a 6'4" rookie who had an outstanding preseason. And in the thumping that we received from Green Bay was the only bright spot with it, one of the most amazing catches. That should have right then and there opened their eyes and said, you know what, I don't care if he's a rookie or not. We're going to get him 3 or 4 passes at least thrown to him a game. Take some pressure off of JMO. It would open, I believe it would have opened everything up for the JMO and St. Brown. Save St. Brown for the playoffs. I mean, you're going to use them, but don't over abuse them, folks. It's like running a running back 10, 15 times. 4 sets it down. That's why Montgomery's so important to us. Make him stay. I can deal with Goff leaving if we get something in return for him, or a solid quarterback that can run. Jared Goff can throw the ball very, very well. And so I don't know. Tell me what you think about Jared Goff. I know he's not it could be another Matthew Stafford situation where he's not the biggest problem, but it's not working. So let me know.